as we move further from the faith in the West, we see that more and more things like what we're going to be talking about today are happening. And we're talking about kind of our elites and how easily they are deceived simply because they wish to be. And so we're looking today at a new Netflix show that the last I looked was #2 in the United States. So it's getting a lot of traction. And this is about Kai, the hatchet-wielding homeless guy. Kai, the hatchet-wielding homeless guy. And he had a kind of momentary, rise to fame because of the fact that he was a hatchet-wielding homeless man, and no one ever deigned to ask the question, why is a homeless dude running around with a hatchet, and why are we not asking more questions? Rather, instead, our Hollywood elites and other elites quickly promoted Kai to the ranks of being on the Jimmy Kimmel Show and other places, and started throwing music deals, among other things, at this guy. Now, the documentary tries to do the best it can to explain how our culture, our society, and our elites wanted to promote him and how it made sense at the time. I think the documentary fails, and rather the documentary is a great expose on how foolish the people that we have in places of power actually are. They have some very mistaken emotional notions that are not rooted in reality, because most of our cultural elites are protected from it. So that's right, a homeless guy walking around with a hatchet wasn't enough to give some pause to people, or the fact that he busted a dude repeatedly in the head with this hatchet, unnecessarily using a level of force that to stop something that was happening that should have given everybody pause. No, rather, what our Hollywood elites did was jump on the fact that the video of this guy being on the news and other places went viral. His weird demeanor never sparked people or struck people as incredibly odd. It just struck people as funny. And so Kai, like I said, found himself on places like the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and even a Hollywood producer who wanted to give him his own reality TV show. Now, it seems really clear to me that from the outset, what we're dealing with here is a group of people, a group of specifically Hollywood elites, who have no understanding about what homelessness actually is. See, from my experience with homelessness and from everything that you can really read on the subject, and I would encourage personal experience with this kind of thing as much as possible, but most elites kind of live in these bubble-wrapped kind of bubble-like lives that don't actually interact with homeless people. So the only thing they can do is lean upon what they hear in the news rather than leaning on actual experience or actual wisdom about the subject. To speak to one person, whether it be somebody who deals with the homeless or somebody who works in social work, and they will tell you the vast majority of homeless people are dealing with either mental issues that desperately need attention or dealing with an incredible level of drug addiction that has caused them to choose homelessness as a result of their substance abuse. See, the Hollywood liberal, the social elite, thinks that all the homeless need is a hand up. All the homeless need is enough money to buy a home, and then they won't be homeless. But they never ask themselves, why is the person homeless in the first place? Because they always automatically assume that the reason they're homeless is because of capitalism and capitalistic pigs who wish to make sure that they take all the money for themselves and not leave any of the rest of it for anybody else. So homeless people, in the mind of a social elite, homelessness is a predicament that has been thrust upon these people rather than a decision that they have actually made. And I know it will come as a surprise to some of you who don't think for yourself on this issue, but homelessness is almost entirely a problem created by the person who is homeless. Now, I know there are exceptions to that rule, and I don't wish to come off as dispassionate about this subject and the plight of these people, but the reality is we've got to get to the source if we're ever actually going to solve the problem. And the reason they're struggling with the issue is because of a bunch of bleeding heart liberals who think that it is more humane to allow people to live on the street in their own feces rather than to actually eradicate this problem, to put people who have mental health issues in mental health hospitals and keep them there against their will, and to help people with substance abuse issues either by putting them in jail or by trying to put them in some type of treatment facility. And if we find that neither one of those things work, then we might have to actually have a real substantive conversation about the real solution rather than just allowing tens of thousands of people to sleep in homeless camps in and around LA. But see, this is not the conversation we're having. People like Karen Bass, who is the mayor of LA, said that she will be spending $1.2 billion to try to solve the homelessness issue, especially in LA. And she's asking other places in and around California to give to help her toward this cause. This is much like the $100 million that was spent not so long ago by the predecessor of Karen Bass, and that only multiplied the issue even more. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is this $1.2 billion going to go towards to fix homelessness in and around LA? And if you guessed that that money would specifically be going to help build and make houses for homeless people, you would be correct. Now, these people never venture to ask, what are the homeless people who do not have any capacity to actually maintain and keep up a home going to do with this home once they've spent $1.2 billion of taxpayer money on this issue? Of course, we perhaps know what's going to happen is what is today a state of emergency will become a national emergency, where now our tax dollars go even more to California so that they can misappropriate them in the most foolish ways. See, this is the problem with so many of our social elites today. Rather than being effective problem solvers, they are people who lead with emotions first rather than intellect. They lack the prerequisite mental capacity to actually lead the states and the organizations that they're leading. Which brings us to, I guess, perhaps where you might know I'm going next, which brings us to Joe Biden. So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely need to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.